I'm going to dive straight in with Doctor Who, as it is the focus of today.
Right.
What are your overriding memories of your time on the Savages?
Well, I'll go try.
Go on, off you go.
Well,
Just flip a coin.
I remember the TARDIS first of all. I never actually flew in it, but I got very close. I remember in the Savages, I was one of the assistants. I think I was a baddie at the time, because Doctor Who materialised, as it says, from another planet, a long way away, and onto a land where there was an apparently idyllic lifestyle, perfect lifestyle, until he found out that the elders, as they were called, lived off the blood of slaves, which I thought a bit strange. Anyway, then the elders, they caught the Doctor, and when he found out that they were frauds, crooks, they caught him and tried to change his personality. And I remember him stretched out on the table, and me, I think, twiddling dials and reading things, looking very scientific, and not knowing so all what I was doing. But anyway, his personality was too strong for them, and he overcame them. And the rest, they say, is history. The thing was, at that time, it was a new series starting out. We didn't know whether it would go one series, two, whatever, you know. But we went on anyway, enjoying it much as we could. And let me see, I'm trying now to remember.
You mentioned obviously working on the laboratory set.
Oh yes, yes.
Unfortunately, the episodes no longer exist, but having sort of looked at the telesnaps, it looks a very complex, complicated set, very grand, very technical.
Yeah.
Was it like that in reality, or was it
held
together with sticky tape?
No. If it said turn the dial right, I wouldn't have known what to do.
Would have probably come off in your hand.
Oh, absolutely, very likely. But I mean, there's nothing like the wonderful sets we've got today, and all the characters and the special effects. If only we had. But with what we had, which was limited, it was a great result, really. The Doctor would appear and disappear, the TARDIS would appear and disappear. And my one regret is that I never had a chance to travel in the TARDIS.
Right.
So...
Did you go and have a go inside the prop, though? Did you get inside the police box in between breaks?
It was a bit of a swizz, really, because you had the door into the post box, the phone box. But then you cut to a set, as I remember, with the interior.
Yeah.
Because even with the best one in the world, they couldn't stretch a phone box to that degree. But I remember we had a lot of fun. Will Hartnell was great, very nice man, and we had a lot of fun.
Right. Peter, and we'll come back to your overriding memory, but I just noticed a little look there when you mentioned Andrew mentioned what a charming man William Hartnell was. Did you find him to be a very nice man?
I fell out with William Hartnell in the army game, and he never forgave me. And when I walked through the door for the first day's rehearsal for the Savages, he remembered me and sort of. It was one of those, you know. What are you doing
not him.
Yeah, not him. And strangely enough, there was a guy came in. I can't remember what he was playing. A chap called Patrick Connell. Now, Patrick and I were in the RAF together.
Right.
And I hadn't seen him since I'd left the RAF. And he turned up as an actor on the Doctor Who. And he was talking to me, and he said, they tell me Bill Hartnell's can be a bit difficult. Uh-huh. And I said, well, yes, I said, I upset him in the army game about 4 years ago, and he hasn't forgiven me yet. But while I was speaking, the voice appeared. Can you two please shut up? There we are, we're back. Bill's here.
I've got to ask, what did you do that upset him so much?
I don't know.
You listened abroad, is it?
I never worked out why he just. It was an episode with one of our famous comedians, and his name has disappeared. And anyway, wasn't a lot of Bill Hartnell in there. I'm talking now about the army game. There wasn't a lot of Bill Hartnell in it. There wasn't a lot of me in it, but I did have a fight, and I got thrown over a bar. This was in the days before health and safety. And they said, we put a mattress down on the floor on the other side of the bar, and all you've got to do is just go over and fall off. Break a leg, yeah. And what happened was, when it came to it, I grabbed by the collar and thrown, and of course with a little spring from me, and went over there, and they were live shows with an audience. I went over the bar, no mattress, bang, came back. So that was that, and that was great fun.
Had they just forgotten to put the mattress there?
Yeah,
or you missed it?
The assistant said, awfully sorry, Peter. We forgot to put the mattress back after the night. Thanks.
Kind of attitude, isn't it? Yeah, you come out playing Quasimodo.
Yeah.
Going back to what I originally asked, Peter, do you have one overriding memory of savages, or memories, shall I say?
I've got one memory. It was a sort of reconciliation memory. In episode 4, in most of the Doctor Who stories, as you will know, episode 4 is where the set gets wrecked. Doctor Who wins. So we had this big tunnel, and no dry ice for the BBC, the old oil-fired smoke machine. And it was difficult to work in, you know. It was. And,
no acting required for that.
No. And I came through as Captain Idal with my security guards. We came through the tunnel, the smoky tunnel, looking for the Doctor, and suddenly there he is. Now the line was grab him and strap him to the trolley, which was the thing that was wheeled in to where they took his life force from his spinal. And so there we were, fighting our way through the smoke, and suddenly there's Doctor Who, and me, trying to build my part, said in a very loud voice, "Strap him and grab him to the trolley." And actually Bill Hartnell laughed. And we had to go back. And in those days, you couldn't just go back and do a scene. You had to go back to a suitable point. So we had to go back to the beginning of the smoke-filled tunnel. And we had to do it again. But I've never forgotten that, strap him and grab him to the trolley.
It's quite rare, actually, to hear an actor from the 60s era of Doctor Who talk about them cutting, because that was very, very rare.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of actors say that the only way they could guarantee that they would cut is if they swore. So if you thought, actually, I don't want that performance going out, if I swear, they'll have to cut.
Yeah.
Did you ever use that technique in your careers in the 60s?
I did once, yeah. It wasn't in Doctor Who. It was in another series called Big Breadwinner Hog, that we were talking about earlier. And in one episode, I can't remember, I set fire to the office of the rivals, the rival gang. And we had health and safety by then. This is 1968, I suppose. Health and safety was getting a little bit better than...
You would have had a mattress by that stage.
If I'd been going to fall anywhere, yeah, with a bit of luck. Or a stunt double. And anyway, we tried to do this thing where I actually set fire to the office, and it only started to bubble up, and then they cut, and the fireman walked in, mine out of the way, turn it all out. And I messed up the line that I was supposed to say, not another Strabin one, but just a fluff, which wasn't really noticeable. And I decided that I didn't like the way it was going. So I said, right, what the bloody hell's going on here? I don't like this thing. Cut! Came the word from Mike Apted, who was director of Breadwinner Hog. And we had to go and do it again. But by then it was easier. We used to do, when doing No Hiding Place, we used to get, if you wanted to cut, or afterwards, you go through the whole thing and it would go out live in England. But it would be recorded for Australia. And if there were any things that needed redoing, then you went back and did the scenes, but the whole scenes,
Right.
You still had to do, you could only go from a sort of cutting point in the edit, and through to the end of that scene, and then cut back to the original. Yeah.
Oh, I've actually never thought about that before. Of course, going out live in Britain, and then for overseas sales, you would actually be able to trim out, so they sort of get the slicker edition being sold abroad, right?
Somewhere in Australia, they're all perfect copies of Doctor Who or No Hiding Place.
Andrew, obviously you worked in live TV and as live TV. Do you have any particular...
I was, in as much as that much maligned Crossroads. I think just one episode was all I could stand, to be honest. But I was the boss of a young guy, the young juvenile lead. Now, if you fluffed the line and it wasn't insulting, they kept it in. And I said, "Righto, what you done? Where have you been?" He said, "I just parked in the car park, sir." And I said, "Oh, in the car park?" I said, "Right at the back of the car park." He said, "Yes, in the car park." And they kept it all in.
Probably the best line of the episode.
I think it might have been among them, yes, certainly, yes.
Oh, we've talked a little about William Hartnell. The two other leads, do you have any memories of Jackie Lane particularly? Because I've said this before, but she's quite an enigma. She doesn't do conventions or audio commentaries, or although she does the odd signing, we know very little about Jackie. Do you remember much about her?
No,
I don't.
Really?
To my shame, I don't. No.
Don't worry, I've actually asked this question before, and I seem to get the same answer each time, but I keep trying. I'm going to try. I'm going to find something out about Jackie Lane one day.
Maybe she's invisible.
Well, one day, Jackie...
Yeah, make it up.
If she was here, I'd never know where she got to. Right.
No.
How about Peter? Because Peter Purvis was obviously a very strong leading character.
Yeah.
But it was his last story. Were you aware of that at the time? Was there sort of did it affect the atmosphere on the set at all?
Well, I mean, briefly, for me, I met him, I think, almost not at all.
Right.
Once or twice, and that was all in passing, because his stuff was mainly with the doc and the girl and whatever. And we were sort of trying not to disappear into the background. But no, I don't remember a great deal of Peter. I know he was a lovely fellow and great to work with. But I never had that pleasure, you see.
Right. Peter, do you have any
Well,
memories
no,
of Peter?
he was, what was he? He was in Blue Peter, wasn't
He was, yes.
Yeah.
For many years.
Yeah.
He went on to do that after.
And there was a rumour going around that he had been offered, it was in the days when the big studios threw out contracts, and Peter Purvis was offered a contract, a Hollywood contract, and he turned it down. And that was after he came out of Blue Peter.
Right.
But, no, I know it was Peter Purvis, and I know he was in The Savages, and that was about it. You know, we were on the different sides. You see, he was a goodie,
I remember
and
lots
I
of
was a
beards going
baddie.
about everywhere, you know, not mine, I didn't. I was clean shaven at the time.
Andrew, you just mentioned that you know, you're in the background of a lot of shots, trying to get yourself noticed. A question to both of you, really. With those smaller roles, have you got any tried and tested methods to make sure that you get noticed on the screen?
Well,
What you mean, besides dropping your trousers?
Yeah, but that old one, obviously.
Works well.
knock the wall down, you know.
Knock the wall down.
No,
Go back to Crossroads again.
no, yeah, absolutely, yes. You breathe hard and the wall goes like that, you know.
No, I think really that the time that I did Doctor Who, I was busy doing everything that was, you know, everything that was around. It was the good years, as it were, and no, I was too busy to worry about, you know, if I was going to be seen or not.
Well, obviously, you know, Doctor Who's the focus today, but you've both had wider careers. If this was a different universe, and you're invited here to talk about another show from your careers, is there a show particularly you're really proud of and actually would love to attend a convention for?
I don't know whether proud is the right word, but performance-wise, yeah, it was a series for Granada called Big Breadwinner Hog, which was directed by. We had two directors, Mike Chapman and Mike Apted, who went along to do great things. You know. And it was starred Peter Egan. And Peter Egan and I had got history that had gone back to when he was 10 years old. We lived in the same road, but I didn't know that, in fact, until a few weeks ago when I was looking, and I just looked up Peter Egan, and it said Alexandra Road, NW6. And I thought, I used to live in Alexandra Road, you know. But I had a part-time job in a place called the Kilburn Egg Stores, which meant that we never starved because it was always able to go home with a couple of gammon steaks or you know, and the money wasn't great. We had a little lad who used to ride the bicycle with the big basket on the front and take the deliveries out. And that was Peter Egan. And he said one day, when I grow up, I want to be an actor, like what you are. And I thought, oh, you fool. But, so he said, how do I do it? And I said, well, first of all, you've got to try and lose the accent, get into a drama school. And then we all went our separate ways. And about, I don't know, 15, 16. So I presume it was somewhere around 4 or 5 years later. There was a knock on the door, and I went down, and this lad was standing there, and he said, "I don't suppose you remember me. My name's Peter Egan." And I said, "Good God."
Took your advice?
Yeah. He said, "No," he said, "I've just finished at RADA, and I'm going up to Stratford to the Royal Shakespeare Company. But I thought I must pop round and see you." So that was it. And off he went, and I went, and we came to Big Breadwinner Hog, and we did as is usual, we had, can't remember, 8 episodes, 8-hour episodes, and they decided to do a reading with all the cast of everything, you know. And so I walked into the rehearsal room, and there was a great long boardroom table that sort of disappeared into a haze at the bottom, you know. And we went, and we all sat down, and somehow I missed the actual ident they gave for Peter Egan when he started, you know, or when they were introducing the cast. And because there was an old mate of mine, Alan Browning, there, who married Pat Phoenix in the end. That's another story. But we went, and he was looking at me, this guy, and I was looking at him. And we came to a coffee break, and he said, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I said, "No, sorry, I know the face." He said, "It's Peter Egan." And there he was. I mean, he'd gone from 10-year-old greengrocery boy to playing the lead. And I was still filling in, you know. Had a marvellous character name in that of Shane Raspberry. Funny? My mother didn't think it was funny. Yeah. But
You mentioned in the bar that it was a very controversial series to be involved in.
Oh, yes. I never
The Daily
finished
Mail
that.
loved it by the sounds of it.
We had 5 daily newspapers. There's the Times, the Telegraph, the Mail, the Observer, and the Guardian. And to make front page of those 5 newspapers was an achievement. And the reason being that in the first episode of Big Breadwinner Hog, Peter Egan, who is a young hoodlum with a gang and a big flashy American car, and he goes to a nightclub where he's been selling lead and he goes to the nightclub because the owner is a crook and the owner is the guy that's buying the lead off him. So they have a falling out, and the lads, Peter Egan and company, were thrown out, and the girl had been harassed, which was a daring scene because one of the big crooks on that side of the gang war was an actor called Barry Linehan, and it was a huge Irish actor, and he had a lovely scene where I can't remember the girl's name who played the female, but he had his flick knife, his trusty flick knife, and he sliced the buttons off her blouse one by one. The camera crabbing down, and that was just before we got thrown out. And instead of going off and licking their wounds, Peter Egan and company went and got a jar of acid, and they waited till the the offending guy, Barry Linehan, came out of the club, and they threw the acid in his face. And the next scene was cut between Peter Egan's crew in the Cadillac driving off, and Barry's face disintegrating with the acid on the screen. And that was what got the newspaper.
And what year was this? Was it
68.
68? I mean, those sort of things would still, I think, get controversial.
Oh,
even
that,
now,
I mean,
later in the
that
late 60s.
would never have been allowed. And in fact, there is the DVD set that's out. And I actually sat and watched it, because I never really saw it when we were doing it. And my son bought it, and I said, oh, I'll have a look at that. So I sat and watched it. And they had edited that scene on the live show, or on the first airing. It was literally cut, disintegrating face, cut, laughing, crooks speeding down Notting Hill Gate, and back to the guy on the ground, and it really was. It was a nasty scene, but they edited it before it went to a DVD set. So, never mind.
Andrew, do you have any particular favourite roles from your career?
Well, yes, I do, quite a few of them, happily. But they asked me, my agent said, talk about your career. Well, my career kicked off in Melbourne,
Right.
in wonderful land of Oz. And the only professional company in the country there was at the University of Melbourne. And I started off as ASM and actor with a company, with a seasoned mix of classic and modern plays. Then I moved on and was a member of the first interstate young Elizabethan players.
Right.
And we played the Silver Shakespeare over 5 or 6 states for the whole year. Anything with a roof on it. Town halls, village halls, there would be, to Mystic Science blocks, broad daylight, audience close to where we are now. And that was the whole year. We did 4 plays. My favourite part was Mark Antony and Julius Caesar. Great training. There were no drama schools when I first started off, a year or 2 later. But then the first thing I remember was Mark Antony and Julius Caesar, then other good parts in Midsummer Night's Dream, everything else. And from there, I got back, the tour ended up in Sydney. And that time, Vivian Lee and Robert Helpman were touring with Lady of the Camellias and Twelfth Night. And I knew she would have had a full company. I wrote, please could you spare me 10 minutes, tell me that I should go back to my law books or persevere with this. And I thought maybe he or she might turn up in 10 minutes into our Mr. Lodge. But they both turned up. I took them over an hour. And the upshot was she wrote to the manager of the RSC, Paddy Donald, at that time, saying, she just said, I think you should see this young actor. And I got my fare one way, Greek-Australian line, had a great time, arrived in London end of '63, just before Kennedy was assassinated. And I got a Christmas job just for 2 weeks, tied me over. Then I had 2 contacts. One was a wonderful old actress, Enid Lorimer. She was Mother Earth for her, character parts, lots of films. And the other one was a man at Spotlight who married a South Australian girl, so he was rather partial to Aussies. So anyway, I ended up meeting up with the director of the Theatre Royal in York, Don Bodley. And Don Bodley found he offered me work. So there were 2 plays there, Hunchback of Notre Dame and Merchant of Venice. In between, I phoned the Aldwych, the RSC, and they said, well, he's here for me, come on down. So I went down, and auditioned for John Barton, came back. And cut a long story short as I can, I was recalled to the Aldwych and was offered their 64th season at Stratford. Magic time. All the histories. The company was led by Dame Peggy Ashcroft. You had Eric Porter, Rhoda Tracy, Ian Holm, Don Lusin. Wonderful stuff, you know. And we did that season there and recorded The Wars of the Roses for the BBC at the end of it. And on a light note, because we reprised Henry V following year at the Aldwych. But after The Wars of the Roses, Dan Pegg, we complained as young actors we weren't being used enough. So they instituted the studio. And I played, they asked one of the stars to play, to direct part of one play, or classic or modern. And Dan Peggy was given the task of directing a chunk from Romeo and Juliet. And I was cast as Mercutio. Well, Sir John Godbold, we met one night after the performances, had always been an idol of mine, inspiring. He had a record in 7 ages as a young boy, you know, that's the stuff. You know. So anyway, we were lined up after the performance, and then Peggy came along and introduced us all from where we were. And John came down, and a very shy man, and he stood back and said, "What I have seen tonight makes me terribly proud of the British theatre." And it was lovely, you know. And that's, so Mark Antony and then the RSC year, which was magic. And those 2 years, playing around, taking Shakespeare to virgin audiences in the outback or cities anywhere, you know, was a great forming year. And then the year at Stratford was the cream on the cake.
Yes.
So favourite roles, yes, there are just 2 of them really. Mercutio and Mark Antony certainly in the full length of the play. And others in television, film, whatever else, you know. And my daughter says, mention, Dad, that your CV, lengthy CV, is on ibnd.com. And so anyone is remotely interested, keep us occupied for quite a while, scrolling through what I've done over the years.
I've been doing that this week, actually.
Right.
In preparation.